We're here today with Brian Griffey, or otherwise known as Victoria's husband. An Arizona drag racing legend. Brian's been around racing for as long as I can remember. Big time into sportsman racing. He just loves to go fast, and definitely a diehard Mopar guy. Brian, where are you from? Where were you born?
It's kind of a funny story. I was actually born in Omaha, Nebraska, but didn't really live there. My dad worked for the horse racing tracks. In the summertime, he had to leave Arizona because it's too hot to run horses. So me and two sisters, I call us road babies. But theoretically, I've lived here my whole life. I just wasn't born here.
So your dad was on the circuit?
Yeah, he just worked. His job was, getting jockeys for horses, but they couldn't run here in the summer. So we'd either be in Denver, Colorado. That's, I think, one of my sisters was born, or Nebraska.
Wow.
Another place.
So basically, you've been around horsepower for a long time. You're born
Yeah.
into horsepower.
Yeah,
multiple horsepower now, though.
But I switched to a different kind of horsepower.
So when you're young, what was your first interest in cars? How did you get? What sparked you about piqued your interest in cars?
I don't know. I think it was just a typical guy growing up. Started getting to high school, started getting interested in cars, and then when I got into high school, I was interested in cars. So I took auto shop 1, 2, then auto shop 3, 4, then a vocational in senior year.
Did you being a Mopar guy? Did you ever do the Plymouth troubleshooting contest? Were you involved with that? Did they have that when you were in high school?
No, I don't remember that one.
When I was in high school, it was a big deal that Plymouth sponsored a program for high school students. They disable a bunch of cars, all like they were dusters. The year I did it, and you had to diagnose it and get it running, and it was just it was a big deal. High school shop. One thing we're big time missing now in high school. People can make a good living being technicians. And so many people want to, trying to push people to get a college degree. That doesn't necessarily mean anything anymore. That's just my 2 cents. Sorry about that. So where'd you go to school?
Believe it or not, same school as Victoria went, Cortez High.
So did you know her back then?
No. In high school, we didn't know each other.
Wow. And then so you grew up basically in the same neighborhood then? The same area?
Really close. I was on one side of the freeway. She was on the other side of the freeway. Around the Olive area.
That's so you fell in love with drag racing. How? What took you to drag racing?
Well, see, I'll say I was the first started generation because my dad wasn't into racing at all. He wasn't even into cars. Like when I went through auto shop, I would use his cars to practice on because he didn't really work on them. So I do his tune-ups and stuff because it just wasn't his, wasn't his thing. So I guess after I got my first car, which I still have like Victoria, a Challenger my junior summer year. And part of the reason I went to Mopar, I'm not knocking Chevys, but when I was in high school, most of the cars were Chevys. And I didn't want to be like everybody else. So I was like, everybody's got Camaros, Chevelles, I want something else. My dad, I believe, at one point had like a 72 Barracuda, just a 318 car or whatever, but kind of liked it. I thought that was, but I wanted something a little more. So when I started looking, I saw either one a Barracuda, a Challenger. That was the 2 main cars to look for, and I found one my junior summer year, and I drove that my senior year of high school.
So what was that car?
The Challenger. 70 Challenger. And I still have it. I was smart enough to keep it. But so then, as far as the racing, right out of high school, I had a friend Jeff Lee. I started hanging out with a lot. We'd go down Central a lot, just cruise our Challengers. And his neighbor, which I'm sure heard the name, a lot of people have, the Goff family, they were already big into racing.
Is this the same Jeff Lee that races American Motors cars now?
Yeah, he raced AMX and Super Stock or whatever. But so that family was in drag racing a lot, and Jeff knew him, and they kept telling Jeff, hey, bring your car out, because he just put him different motor. And me, I was really picky with my car. I would, when we go down to Central, I really never raced my car. I was kind of worried about racing it, worried about hurting the car, but Jeff was different. When we went down there, we were racing all the time. I was in the passenger seat. Most of the time I was the one doing the flagging or whatever, but so anyway, his friend Rocky Goff brought out, hey, you need to come out to Phoenix Dragway, So we finally went out there one day. I think the first time I just went with him, And it seemed like it took forever to get out there. Because, I mean, we went out there, when you got to, I believe, Bell and Grand, that was the last light. I mean, in dirt road all the way into the track. But it's like, as soon as we pulled in there and got out of the car, it was just the sound of these cars. Because I'd never really been around real race cars, you know. Seen these big tires on them and doing the burnouts. It was just like clicking for me, you know. Then, you know, my friend Jess said, oh, you need to come out and race yours, you know. I'm like, I was worried about it. They had a kind of a cool program then, because when you went out for your beginning racers, if you just won your first round, you got a trophy. You got to pick the trophy. If you lost, then you had a second chance to go on and win another trophy. If you won, you win another little deal. And I still have one of the copies of the checks. I think you win like $30 to win, 15 runner-up. But so he finally talked me into going, and I went out and I won a trophy. So I was all excited, you know, of course. Then I told him, like, okay, I'm only going to come out until I don't get a trophy, then I'm done. I don't want a chance, you know. I think I won the next 2 times. Maybe the 4th time I didn't. It was too late. I was hooked.
What year was it? You remember your first year at the races?
That was 1980.
Wow.
Right out, yeah, because I graduated in '79, so I was right out of high school.
But you were hooked on drag racing?
Yeah, once we went there, and then I started racing my cars, and like I said, after I said I wouldn't, and I, you know, got a little bit of experience of winning and just doing it, you know, I just decided, hey, this is what I want to do.
So the Goll family was just really known for adopting a lot of people into bringing them into drag racing. Lester was one of the most fantastic people I've ever known. A lot of people might have thought he was a bumpkin or this or that, but no, he was a gentleman.
Yeah.
And he loved it. His whole family was passionate for drag racing.
Yeah.
What do you remember about Lester that that story? Can you share a story that how it amazed you or it encouraged you?
Well, like I said, I got involved because him knowing them, but we didn't really hang with their family, because once we started going, like me and Jeff, I mean, we used to meet up at like Grand and somewhere and drive, because we were just driving our cars out there and racing them, you know. Mm-hmm. But I mean, you remember hearing different stories, you know, because then racing was a little looser. I mean, he always seemed like a good guy, you know. Rocky was pretty good. I'm sure if we went to him and that stuff, but I think we were kind of like in our own little world. We got introduced and we were just kind of winging it, you know.
Well, it's just wanted to bring him up because definitely he left us several years ago, and in my mind he's one of the our best legends we have. Story of 2 people, Lester Goff and Clyde Edwards, two big time racers that mentored a lot of people into the sport, and without that and without what you do and your wife have done, I mean, when bring new people in, that's an important part of it. So when did you get serious about drag racing? I mean, when did you decide I'm worried about breaking my street car? When did you decide to build a race car?
That was probably pretty early on, because like I said, that was '80. And then, like I said, once I knew I didn't want to quit doing that, I did start doing little stuff, like we'd have a couple cheater slicks in the back of the trunk with the trunk open and disconnecting the exhaust. I did that for a little while, but then I knew I wanted to go faster. And I looked at my car, and fortunately I was smart enough even then, because a lot of us weren't. We just tear our cars up. But I knew my car was kind of a little bit of a special car, because it was an RTSC, had power windows and this. And I go, man, and I saw what it took to make a real race car. You have to cut them up, put tubs in them and all this. I'm like, I don't think I want to do that to this car. So I ended up finding a Barracuda, which I shouldn't have really started tearing that car up either, but it was better than mine. And so that was probably around 81, 82 area. And then my Charger, which I still got, that came about, I never intended, because I'm an E-body person, which means Challenger Barracuda, and this was a Charger. It's a bigger car. A friend of mine's friend had it for sale, and it was a running car. He'd added the drag strip. It was running because when I built the Barracuda, and the fastest I got it down, I think, was like 1350s, because it had the stock motor. I was just kind of working it down there. And anyway, he had this car, and it was a reasonable price, and I'm thinking, I'm going to buy this car just to take the drivetrain out and put it in my car. Well, after I got the car, he cut it up a little bit. I'm like, man, if I do that, I'm not going to be able to sell this car. So maybe I'm better off just keeping this one and selling the other one. And that's kind of how I ended up with a Charger, because that's not a conventional drag car, a big Charger. So.
An unintentional story, but it's actually the car everybody knows you by.
Yeah, and I'm glad I went with that, because honestly, almost anywhere we go drag racing, that body style Charger, there's no other ones there. Because like I said, I guess nobody's dumb enough to race a big Charger.
So, when you were growing up and you're coming through drag racing, what tracks in Arizona do you remember racing at?
Arizona, like I said, the first track I ever went out to was, then it was called Phoenix Dragway. Never got to race the Beeline, but did go out there one time. They used to have like a midnight drags, I think. I think I might have went with Jeff out there. Another time we went out there when it was, I think they had like the AHRA Winter Nationals or something way back in the day. So I only ever got to go out to Beeline 2 times, and that was just, watching. So I didn't get to race there. And then I did actually venture down to Tucson, the old Tucson. Raced there, I think, maybe one time before it shut down. And then one time they did some kind of a special race. It was like in Casa Grande. They used an airport. Eloy, yeah. I actually went to that race in Eloy.
The Mopar guy promoted that, Carl Harvey.
Yeah, I mean, I can't remember that part of it, but I do remember going down to Eloy.
Yeah.
So that was about it for Arizona until, of course, like you said, Phoenix Dragway turned into PRP, Speedway, blah, blah, and then the new Tucson opened up, so.
With your car, you've raced a lot of team Phoenix Dragway, Firebird, Wild Horse Pass races. You've been to Vegas and you've been to a couple other tracks. Where all of you, what's your favorite track you've been to? That you can think of, other than your home track. You say you like going to Vegas. What is it about these places you go to that makes you look forward to it?
Yeah, now as far as success, probably Vegas would be most successful because I've won I've won one divisional at the old Vegas, and that was cool too because I actually raced at the old Vegas. I think I did like 3 years at the old Vegas, and when they first built the new Vegas, I couldn't do nothing there. I was like, I want the old Vegas back,
Yeah.
But as far as the coolness of the track and the atmosphere, and this is probably the first we ever towed, was up in Pacific Raceway up by Seattle, Washington, just because we were camping people too. We like going up the woods and stuff, and to be pitted in the woods, with pine trees and stuff, and just all the trees, because down here it's all desert. You get up there, it's like it's just green.
That is a fantastic track. It's so many trees, you can't see all the cars that are really there because they're in different branches and off different roads in different spots of the track.
Yeah,
I can see how you'd say that. It's beautiful up there. So you've won some divisional races. What's your race your first big race you won that you remember being excited about? It didn't have to be an NHRA race, but when you won a big race, when you really felt like I can do this. Yeah,
well, I'd say my first big one was I'm gonna say it was PRP then. When they first started bringing in, that's a big deal now, the big dollar races. Back then, not so much. It was getting started. There was just one organization called, I think it was like CBRA or something like that. They were starting to do the dollar races. Anyway, they had one out there one time. It was, and this is the most I'd won in one pop. It was like $3,000 to win, and I actually won that race, and it was all cash. So that was probably, I consider myself a little guy, and you finally win a big race because that's the most I've ever won at a race. And you're holding your hand on, that guy's just stacking. You're like, oh my God, I can't believe, So that's probably my biggest, as far as getting the money and the first excitement. But then of course, I did a lot of bracket racing, but then I wanted to venture because also back then I always wanted to get a Wally. And when I first started, it wasn't very easy to get a Wally because there was only like very few avenues you could get it. Either you had to win a national event, which at that time my car couldn't run a national event, divisional race, or at the ET finals. That was it. There was, they brought in a lot more since and now, but so it was very limited. So that's kind of when I started leaning towards, I'm going to get into, like, they were running Super Street at the divisionals. And my car then was running like around 1120s, and I said, man, that's my goal. I need to get my car down 1090s. I want to start getting a shot at running Super Street. So I did, and I'm sure I, went through my first years of learning and all this, but so my biggest race still in my mind would be my first Wally, which I won. I believe it was somewhere in the early 90s at Firebird.
What race was that?
It was a divisional race.
So you got the hardware, and that is a big deal. I've been racing for a long time, and I don't own one, so congratulations. How many you've got multiple?
Yeah, I believe I got 5 total for Super Street because I've won at Firebird, I won at Bakersfield one time, and I believe 3 times in Vegas. And then I've actually got 2 in her car for like the Dragster Challenge or something.
Well, congratulations. That's a pretty special deal. So we know that, you know, from talking to Victoria, that your family, it's a family affair for you.
Yeah.
When your kids were growing up, what did they do when they were young, and how did you get them behind the wheel? What was their first experience that you got them racing?
Like I said, the very first would be, you know, because we all went out there together, would have been the bike racing. Because when they were younger, you know, they couldn't drive cars or nothing. And not to sound old, but, you know, I was there when juniors very, very first were coming in. And when they very, very first came in, there was barely anybody that had one. I mean, I remember like when we were out at PRP, I think it was the first kid in Arizona, I can't remember his name or anything, but brought out this junior dragster. No one ever seen one before, and we're looking at it, and you know, oh, this is going to be the future and whatever. But so anyway, they started out in bicycles, and then as time went, because you know they also didn't have these programs like they do now, where at the track, if they're only 15, you know, they could ride with you like the junior street class. They didn't have that kind of stuff.
Junior Drag Racing League, I think.
So I believe David, he was a little bit older, and anyway. So Chris got started in juniors because David was he was a bigger person too, so the junior dragster wasn't going to work for him. So Chris got into juniors, so he started like at 8 years old, so that's where he got started. And then eventually, then of course David also moved out of state for a while. Then when he came back, you know, we started putting him in her car, and then Chris got older too. So then they kind of share her car. So far, I haven't let go of the reins to let him start running my car yet.
Not yet. You're not ready to get out of the seat.
I won't be ready to get out of the seat for a long time. I told myself I still very much enjoy the sport. I mean, I enjoy the competition. Of course, you always want to win. Everybody knows you're not going to win every time. You're going to lose a lot more than you're going to win. But when you finally do, it's a big, big deal. But it's like just getting out there. You know, like a lot of, especially we go to divisionals, out-of-state people, that's the only time we really see them. You know, that's where you met them. You get to see people you haven't seen in a long. It's really all about being there too, just the presence of different people and just the overall race itself, you know, and then the plus of, you know, getting to race it too.
The relationship, people helping each other, it's what everybody loves about drag racing. It's truly a family affair, whether, you know, immediate family or the family of racers. Generally, way more great people out there than people you want to avoid, and that's, you know, that's a great story. How did you meet? How did you meet Victoria? And how did you know, was she a car girl? She was a car girl, and she was driving a Mopar. Did you go,
The funny thing is, I never really meet her then. When I first probably seen her is when I was actually still living at home. And I think she was living with her sister or something. And she had her Challenger, and I had my Challenger. And I'd be out there washing it in the front yard, and I'd hear this noise, you know. I think she always would get on a little bit. She told me later. I'd hear it coming down the block, whoa, whoa, you know, and there's a Challenger too. So first thing I'm like, oh, another Challenger. Let's not go by. Man, there's a good-looking woman in there too, you know. And so I kind of saw her there, you know, but nothing really connected then. And then years later, you know, I think I'd see her occasionally because she was hanging with a different, you know, a group of people. I'd seen her down at Central, but you know, just see her, you know. But you're always like, man, she's, you know, pretty nice looking, you know. And I think, you know, then, you know, I think when I first met her was, I want to say at the track. I think I was at track one time, and I think maybe she was the first one that came up to me, started talking to me, and we just got to talking, and she's, you know, I was really into the racing, and you know, that's when I knew she was already in Mopars, but she knew I was in Mopars, and I think she, you know, took her out to the races a few times, and then next thing you know, started dating, and
the rest is history. Great history.
Yeah.
I can see Victoria coming up to you. She's a very friendly person, and I don't think she got very shy at all, and she's probably welcomed a lot of people. But for you, it's really special. I'm sure a great person, and also another Mopar fan, and you didn't have to have any arguments about what kind of cars you were going to drive and own. And that's always makes marriage easier. What do you see in the future? What's your future for racing? What do you want to do? What haven't you done that you'd like to do?
Well, like I said, I've met some of my accomplishments. You know, like I said, you got some, you know, but I call it the smaller Wally. My dream is, yes, one day I'd like to win a national event. That's the bigger Wally. But I know it's hard for me because my particular class I'm in now, you only got like one shot a year. Yes, could I move up to another class if I really, really wanted to push it? But I've always kept my racing kind of in balance. I'm not going to be the guy that's going to take out big loans and stuff so I could go faster. I want to stay right where I feel comfortable, affordable, without putting myself in debt. You know, I love my racing, but I'm not going to go in debt over my racing. So I'm kind of where I'm at. I don't think I'm probably going to kind of stay where I'm at, Super Street primarily. Still try to chase that goal, and the other one was win like an ET final. Haven't accomplished that yet. But those are probably the, you know, and as far as me myself, like I said, I still enjoy it. I haven't, you know, some people say, yeah, like 5 years, I think I'm done. Or right now, I don't consider myself, like I said, until I physically can't get in a car or don't feel like I'm safe driving down the track, I'm gonna keep racing.
A bad day at the races is still better than most days working for you? Or?
Oh yeah, I mean, like I said, it's, yes, a large part you're going to the race, you want to win. That's why, you know, anybody goes out there doesn't want to win, well, they're not out there for the right reason. I mean, you are going out there to try to win a race. But, like I said, in that part, you're also going out there just to, you know, I call you racing family. A lot of these people you see at the races, you know, they're not, you don't, you know, some of them are in your regular life, but a lot of them aren't. You know, that's when you see them, when you go to the races. So that's the big part of it too. You know, I enjoy that part too. Like even now, like I said, lately, probably the last, you know, I've done very little bracket racing probably in the last 5 years or more, ever since the boys started racing it, because I'm like, you know what, I've had my time. I'm not quitting. I still run my car in Super Street, but let them, you know, let them start, you know, running her car. Let them do the brackets. So I've told them both, you know, if there's a race coming up, you guys decide who wants to race. And if you don't want to race and you don't want to race, then I'll race it. But if they want to race it, so. But just going out with them, I enjoy that too, because seeing them succeed. You know, David, he won a track championship out there 4 or 5 years ago. So see the kids succeed too, and just see they get enjoyment out of the same thing. You got enjoyment out. You know, it's not like, because you know it doesn't always go that way. You know, you got all this stuff. You're hoping as you get older, your kids are going to take it over and whatever. You know, it doesn't always work out in all situations, but so far it's working out for us because they're into it. So I feel good about, you know, when my days are past, you know, they're going to carry it on with, you know, and they got the cars to do it and stuff. So,
well, you're definitely, your story is a great one. You've had a lot of great accomplishments. Been racing forever, since 1980. So it's what, 44 years of racing, and you're still practicing. You know, it's like almost like a doctor. A doctor has a practice. You know, drag racing is always a practice of patience and abilities and skill. You've meant a lot to a lot of people. I've seen people, you and your family, help others. That's part of the big part of drag racing, in the family and the fraternity that we have. And for all these things, you definitely are an Arizona drag racing legend. We appreciate having you here today, and what a wonderful story. Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you. I appreciate it.